morning everybody, welcome back to another Inktober drawing sketch with me video. So today is day 5 on the Inktober prompt list. It's actually 8th of October day, but we're not going to talk about that. And the word for today is flame. Now I'm actually super excited about this illustration because I already pretty much know what I'm going to be doing for it. I've already drawn out a sort of rough sketch. I've done it earlier this evening in front of the telly with a nice bowl of soup. So it is quite a cozy little illustration idea. But yeah, apart from making a few little tweaks to it, this is pretty much the illustration that I'm going to be trying to head towards doing. I think what I need to do first is transfer this sketch onto a piece of watercolour paper. So let me quickly just go and find some. Ta-da! Oh, it's a little bit curly. I think I'm going to have to tape it down at some point. Transfer this illustration. I think what I'm going to do is grab this little graphite stick. This is quite a handy little tip for if you've got like a drawing that you really love and don't want to basically draw it out the same again. Alright, so what I'm going to do is turn the piece of paper over, grab my graphite stick and just basically rub away over the back of it. So that is now all covered in graphite. The only downside is that your hands do get a little bit mucky, so I am just going to go quickly rinse my hands off. Crikey back. They're slightly less graphitey now. Now I need to get my piece of paper that I want to transfer my little design onto. I'm now going to put my drawing where I want it on the paper. Oh, it looks like it's got a little frame. I'm going to find myself a pen and I'm basically just going to trace over the top of my marks that I want to keep. Probably going to start down at the bottom here with this little pumpkin leaf. So yeah, I basically drew over the top of my illustration design using my biro pen, pressing fairly hard to transfer the lines that I wanted onto the piece of paper below and making little alterations to the illustration as I went. If I wasn't 100% sure about whether to keep a mark or a line that I'd made, I pressed slightly lighter with my pen so that it would leave a faint line on the transfer underneath, and then I could make a final decision about it when refining the illustration later on. I've now traced over all the top of the drawing, so I now need to peel this off and hopefully it's transferred to the paper below. I can't peel this off. Come on. Yay! Perfect. Pretty much transferred most of the marks that I've made. What I'll probably need to do now is I'm going to lightly rub it out and then I'm going to draw over it for a second time. Again, probably making a few little changes as I go. Let me just get a really nice sharp pencil because the sharper it is, the thinner the lines. I'm just going to take it slowly, just rub out some of the lines that are already, but I'm only going to rub out bits at a time so I don't lose out too much information. Get rid of the rubber dust. Let's draw around it for a second time. So on this second refinement sketch, I really wanted to make sure that I properly refined the illustration and that everything was in the correct place, as I knew that once I came to painting and inking the illustration, it would be a lot harder to do this, especially when using watercolour paint, which was the material that I was intending to use. It's not 100% impossible to make changes in later stages, but I always find it best to spend time refining the sketch first and then takes out any hassle later down the line. You may see that I spent a little bit of time changing lines into little texture marks, especially on areas such as a squirrel's tail, as I usually tend to use broken lines to indicate fur texture and to give the cute fuzziness of the animals. Just going to bulk out some of these leaves a bit more just to fill in this gap a bit around here. And then going to move these stars. So I gradually worked on filling out some of the areas of the composition and moving a few elements around until I had the basic outline of the illustration all sketched out and ready to work into with colours. Okay, good morning. So it's actually the next day now. I went and had a sleep, obviously. My eyes were kind of going on me yesterday, so I didn't quite get this Inktober drawing finished in one day, but I've got to this stage, which I'm really, really happy about. I took this off the board and got a little scan and a photocopy of it. What I'm hopefully going to do later on is turn this into like a little colouring book page, but what I might do today is kind of use this and also the original sketch to test out if like I need to test out any colours and stuff like that. But yeah, basically today I'm just going to sit and paint them. I've got 2 clean jars of water, so one to wash my brush off instantly after I've painted it, and then one to kind of refresh the brush with water. I've then also got my Creative Peaks watercolour set. I love this set of watercolour paints because they come out very, very vibrant, although it is a bit dirty at the moment because the palette's a bit dirty and I've been a bit lazy about washing the palette off. I'm going to get my inks and my pens out a little bit later on because I don't want to have too much stuff on my desk. But the other thing that I have just got out as well, a little set of colouring pencils which I got from the works. Rather than painting on this when I'm planning out my colours, I can just use my colouring pencils. I actually think that's probably where I'm going to start first, is just doing a little bit of planning of my colour scheme. Yeah, let me just grab my little photocopy of the final piece. Yeah, let's get figuring out some of the colours. In my head, I instantly know that I want to make the toadstool red. It's going to probably be like a mixture of a reddy pinky colour. It might have little reflections of the flames and stuff in it. You just layer on the pink. I think I'll probably use purple as the shading element for my toadstool. Purple down in the bottom. I'll probably do purple around this bit. I do like the look of purple and yellow together. It's a very Halloween-y colour, so I'm looking forward to seeing how the yellow and the purple contrast. So there'll probably be some little bits, patches of flame reflection. Oh, I like the idea of colouring over the white blobby bits with some flame reflection. That works quite nicely. Right, so that would be the kind of idea for the toadstool. Now I'm just going to pull up a little reference photo of a flame. Okay, so it'll be kind of reddier on the outside and then go into yellow and white. So that makes sense. I think that's where the purple is going to come into a bit of play, because we need to have a bit of a difference between the flames to make sure there's quite a bit of a distinguishment. Don't know that's a word. I don't think that's a word. Distinguishment. And leave that bit of white, bit of yellow, harden into a bit of orange. I feel like putting a bit of effort into the planning of the flames and stuff is quite important, because that is kind of meant to be the main theme of this Inktober. Let's go for a bit of red. Oh, pencil went flying. I don't need to colour this all in. As I say, it's just a planning thing. Okay, so that is a very rough, scribbly idea of my colours. There's bits of it that I'm probably going to change, like this bit I think needs to be a bit more yellowy and reflective, and I think obviously the animal is going to have some more browns and stuff put into it, so it's not just a complete yellow face. But I think I sort of know where I'm heading with my colours and everything now, so this little sheet came in quite handy. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to get on with doing this final piece. I'm a little bit anxious about it. That's why I keep on procrastinating a little bit, because I really don't want to ruin it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it will come out alright. So let me just grab my watercolour paint. Also as well, little cotton wool buds, so I can dab out colours if I need to, especially if I go drastically wrong. I'm going to be using this little paintbrush. It came with this little set here. It is meant to be like a water barrel one. Water barrel one, but I never actually fill it with water, I just dip it in the jar. Let's start with the flame bits. I feel like they're the most important parts. Whew. Okay, here we go. Just gonna dab out some of the colour. Make a little blend of the orange and the yellow. Drag some of that orange down so there's like a little lighter bit of orange in the middle. Always lift some of the paint as well. Put a bit of yellow into the middle of it. I might need to use my little cotton dabber. More dark orange around it. Yay! One little flame done. Not gonna lie, I'm actually letting the watercolour paint do most of the work with these flames, because it's kind of blending down the colours naturally, making a nice little gradient. All I'm doing is just letting it kind of fill out the gaps. And also what is kind of handy is like the watercolour paints, the way it is kind of like laid out in a gradient anyway, so it's kind of just using one and then the other and then the other and then the other, and then just ending up with a nice little fire gradient. Let's get on with the toadstool. Like pinky first. Bit of purple in. Mix a bit of purple and the reddier colour together. I probably will put a bit of yellow into the toadstool, but I might do that a bit later on with like either my inks or my pens or my colouring pencils. I just want to get like a base layer of the colour down first. So I basically carried on painting my illustration using my watercolour paints, focusing on layering on colours and tones and playing around with different colour gradients. Every so often referring back to my colour scheme plans, so I knew that there was enough contrast between the different elements and characters in the illustration. I particularly found it fun painting the green liquid and the green smoke rising out of the toadstool, as I found that I could play around with the natural transparency of the watercolour paints to create the effect that I wanted. And I used a wet on wet watercolour technique to create a background, allowing the colours to blend and merge together. My only regret is that the shape of the pumpkin down in the corner somehow magically changed a little bit over time from the original sketch, but it's not that big a deal and I think it still works as part of the illustration. Okay, so I've put like a base layer of colour down on everything, but it definitely all needs to be like neatened up, and I need to add a bit more shading in and different elements of like colour, so perhaps more yellow into different things because they're around the flame. And yeah, I definitely need to work on the eyes and things like that. And then also what I do need to do is probably use some white paint and stuff to bring a few areas out a bit more because it's all a little bit flat at the moment. So I think what I'm going to do next is get out my Derwent Inktense water-soluble pencils, which are all in this little bucket here. Just going to work into it using them. So I started by using my pencils to add some shading to the now giant pumpkin in the corner of the paper, as that was looking very flat and needed some depth. So I used some dark reds and oranges to add shading to that, and then I gradually started working on my furry little animal friends, making sure to use broken lines and mark making techniques to add fur textures to them. You may also notice that I grabbed a yellow pencil and started to add a lot of yellow to the characters' faces and arms, just to hint at the glowiness of the fire and to warm the illustration up a little bit. I carried on using my pencils to add some definition to some of the shapes, especially the logs down at the bottom of the flames, and to fill in some leafy twiggy details in the background. At this point you may also notice that I use a black fine line pen to continue working into the shading on the illustration and to give the illustration as a whole a storybook style. Okay, so I'm nearly there with this little painting. I just need to work on adding some white bits and lightening some areas. So I need to paint the bubbles and kind of lighten some of the fur, especially around some of the faces. Add a few little white dots into the eyes, maybe add some little white dots for the stars, and just kind of work on lightening up some areas because I've darkened a few areas. Now I need to go the opposite way and lighten some areas. So I would normally use like a white Posca pen for this, or like a white gel pen, but they have all run out on me, so I'm just going to have to use my white acrylic paint and my paintbrush, and I'm just going to start with these little bubbles. So yeah, that is another illustration completed as part of this Inktober Draw of Me mini-series. It's definitely my favourite one so far. I love the warmth of the flames, and I'm really happy with how the smoke looks rising from the green bubbly potion. I'm currently at the moment working on a colouring book page to go with this illustration, so let me know if you'd like to have access to that colouring sheet. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you again soon with another arty crafty video. Bye!